Thanks so much for carving out some time at a great outdoor retail event to hear from some experts in brands and influencers around what some successful brands are doing around influencer marketing, what it is, what it isn't, and why it's a new and great marketing trend. The cool thing about this panel talk is it's followed by a happy hour. So we're buying you beers afterwards. So it's that might be the best part of the panel. We're going to spend the next kind of 45 minutes reviewing what we've heard at ReadyPulse from over our kind of 100 clients over the past 5 years, everywhere from a lot of the big clients to some of the startup brands that say, hey, how do I be successful in influencer marketing? We started the company 5 years ago with one thing really in mind, and that was how do you bring authentic marketing to a digital era? Word of mouth marketing has always been the most effective form of marketing, and we've always thought that if you can bring some transparency, authenticity, and have your actual customers be the best storytellers, because storytelling is always the best form of marketing, that you're going to be a successful marketer and brand. So we've tried to develop a platform and a set of solutions to be able to partner with some great brands here to be successful at that. So this is the third year we've done this, and Nina's actually joined me for those last two, and it's gained in popularity. Whereas in years past, we talked about how do you actually use sponsored athletes in your marketing, and how do you actually use social generated content on your website. But really today's focus is going to be all about influencer marketing. And why is influencer marketing so important these days? Well, half of the population is millennials and Generation Z, kind of under 25 years old. There's 2 billion people on mobile phones, on social networks, spending hours on social networks. Guess what? Like you guys, they don't like ads. Guess what? They can block ads. So ads don't work for marketers, and they don't work for consumers. So how do consumers actually want to find credible, authentic ways to make research and buying decisions? From credible people online, from social influencers online. And so we're going to really talk about some of the leading brands and influencers today about what they're doing in this space, their viewpoints of it, and I think we'll have a good discussion. We'll take about 45 minutes. Definitely we'll have some Q&A. I think we have some giveaways for some great questions. So why don't we get started? So panelists, if you could introduce yourself, if you can talk about who you are, what brand you work with, and what your role is. Let's get started there. Diego.
Hi everyone, my name is Diego Nunez. I work for Skullcandy, and I'm the head of digital and e-commerce for them, and that sort of spans social media down to sort of CRM, email, web, and of course e-commerce.
Hey everyone, my name's Nina Williams. I'm a professional rock climber. I've been climbing for about 14 years now, and I represent Adidas Outdoor, 510 footwear, organic climbing pads, and gnarly nutrition.
And you can see Nina on the cover of Rock and Ice recently. Go Nina, woohoo!
Nice. My name is Jeff Snow. I'm the global community manager at Smartwool. I kind of handle all online communication, social media, digital marketing, kind of everything up until the transaction of sale. It's kind of neat.
And I'm Katie Bornhold. I'm the social media manager for The North Face. So I oversee the strategy for all of our social channels and then extensions of social to other areas of the business, like our influencer program.
Awesome. So we're extremely fortunate to have these panelists up here in all of their respective industries. They've really set themselves apart about being some of the leading, innovative, and emerging marketers out there. They've won awards from different analyst firms. They've been recognized by different ad agencies. So when we get asked at ReadyPulse about who is the best, show me what good looks like, we talk about these four up here. So we're extremely grateful that they spent some time and carved out some time to be join the panel today. So let's work through definitions. When people say influencers, half the time, we're talking to people, the thing that people cringe about is, oh, is that some 13-year-old who buys followers on Facebook and asks to get paid for a post? Other people say, well, my influencers, my athletes. There's a lot of different definitions of it. So I'd love to go through the panelists and just, you guys can choose which one goes first or next, but what's your definition of influencers? Like, what do you guys call them? Jeff, you wanna start off with that?
Yeah, so at Smartwool we have everything from sponsored paid athletes all the way down to just average fans, and kind of the whole program is lumped together, and we call it Fan Field Tester program. And so we have that sponsorship level all the way down to an advocate, influencer. These terms that kind of get thrown around, they're just people that want to have a higher touch relationship with us, and because they want that relationship, we're willing to give it to them, and we want those people to really become part of our brand engine versus just kind of be on the outside and participate in posts and share and like things like that.
Awesome. Katie, what do you guys call your influencers?
Yeah, so we're similar to Jeff. We have a tiered structure. So we have our sponsored athletes, of course, and then our TNF Locals program is our influencer program. And actually we call them ambassadors more so because they really start off as social influencers, and that's kind of the pool of people that we start with when we're trying to find brand ambassadors for our TNF Locals program. So you start by looking for people who are influential on social media, who post frequently, have a very engaged following, have a high community count, and those are the people that you start with. Those are social influencers, and then you kind of whittle down from that pool of people to the people you want to represent your brand as a social ambassador. And based on the criteria that you define for your brand, you then whittle down the pool, and then those are the people that you decide to invite into, or for us, that we decide to invite into our TNF Locals ambassador program. So we call them our TNF Locals most of the time, but they really sort of go from just being a social influencer to then being an ambassador for our brand.
Awesome. So Nina, you're a sponsored athlete. Your brands, can you walk us through, do they call you a sponsored athlete? Do they expect you to be an influencer, an ambassador?
No.
How do you interact with your brands? What are the terms that you guys use?
So at Adidas Outdoor, we have our elite team of professional athletes, and we also have our grassroots athletes. And but for me personally, I encompass all of us as social influencers, because as an influencer, I choose and I make the conscious decision to impact my community in a positive way. So there are a lot of people out there that have big followings and that have a lot of attention spent on them, but as an influencer, I honestly wake up every day and I think, okay, what can I post and what can I say to my audience today that will make even a small difference in their life? And that's my definition of an influencer.
That's fantastic, and I think I'll come back to that when we're talking about incentives and what really motivates social influencers as well. Diego, you guys have a lot of great different programs that you guys are doing. Can you walk us through what you call some of your programs?
Yeah, well, rather than talk about kind of what we call them, because I think it's the similar idea of the tiers.
Yep.
The way sort of to think about it is just how formal is the relationship with
Sure.
the company and the brand, right? So at the ambassador sort of athlete level, there's a little more formality to the entire program in terms of how it's structured.
Yep.
But everyone's here is right to say that our fans are also influencers onto themselves, and so it's how do you find those people that are just, it's a very good match, they're genuine, they're authentic, and at the end of the day they have engagement that sort of lines up with your company's values.
Right.
And so they're influencers in their own way too, and the idea there is, just in terms of the tiers, is understanding how you move them up. Potentially someone who's a fan who's just doing all these things on their own, maybe it's time to sort of reach out and start to say, hey, can you become, in an informal basis,
Right.
Do stuff with us, we'll send you, we may seed you some product
Yep.
as a result. And then over time, potentially that could sort of be moved up to another tier, which is a little bit more of a formal sort of ambassador program.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between organic ambassadors and influencers and sponsored ones. And let's talk a little bit about organic ones. And there's a lot of different science around social influencers and following them and activating them and measuring them. But there's a lot of art to actually who's persona for your brands. Can you guys talk a little bit about what type of persona that you're looking for when you look out to social media? Maybe even talk about some of the channels that work for you. But when you're talking about the fits for your organic influencers, what are the types of things that you guys are looking at? Katie, you want to start off in terms of what stuff is top of mind for you on that?
Yeah, so I guess from an organic influencer perspective, we would be looking at people who are living the outdoor lifestyle, who are participating in the outdoor activities that we promote as a brand. We do a lot of fan content reshares along that nature. So that's more of kind of the organic side of things, I guess. And then for our influencer program, we that's more of a sponsored relationship because there is an incentive involved. So anytime you're giving out gear or gift cards or special experiences, that is deemed some sort of an incentive for people to be leaving product reviews or posting photos of them in the gear. So whenever there is that kind of incentive involved, then there is an official ambassador relationship. And so, we still go for people who are really authentic in that outdoor lifestyle. They're influential on social, but they also are really core, and they live the lifestyle that we want to promote as a brand. And they're going to be the authentic voice that is speaking about our product and leaving product reviews and sharing images that we want to see. So.
Awesome. Jeff, what type of personas are you guys looking for?
We're in a similar situation as Katie. We're looking for people that are doing kind of extraordinary things but are everyday people, because we really want to celebrate the people that are kind of doing these really great monumental things. Like somebody completing their first marathon is a huge achievement. It's in their world, that's their Everest potentially, and that's worth celebrating, all the way up to somebody that actually does get to summit Everest. And we're looking for those people to be credible and authentic and have some way to tell their own story at scale. But we're really interested in more celebrating those folks and looking for somebody that fits our mold of the brand, which is really just being authentic and credible, like I said.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Diego, what about you? What does Skullcandy look for when you guys are looking for organic kind of social influencers?
Yeah, it's a similar point of departure. So, our focus is living life at full volume, which ties to sort of our audio products, and we use a hashtag called Stay Loud, right? So we're looking for people who embody that spirit, who are sort of chasing their dreams, who are authentic. They are who they are. They're sort of independent of what's out there. They're just going out and making something happen. And so that's really, we look for that, right? And there's a certain passion, I think, that sort of transfers, and I think you embody that well in terms of how you express, like how you think about it. So we're just really looking for that passion point, because ultimately that's really what connects on the other end. And so at an organic level, that's the main thing. And the way we, same thing, maybe it's not an incentive, maybe it's more of a reward, but we will highlight people, right? So if we find someone out there just doing that organically without us even spurring it in any way, once we find that individual, we may repost it, give them props, or we may even feature them on the website, right?
Awesome.
This is where you guys come in. And so, and that sometimes that's huge. That's huge for them, that just gives them that sort of spotlight that recognizes them, and in their own community, that means a lot.
Absolutely. And Nina, so you have both sponsored relationships and organic relationships. Can you talk a little bit about like what the different expectations that you see brands have when they are sponsoring you versus when it's just an organic relationship? I think Katie touched on it.
Yeah, so I think a definition of sponsored versus organic is when I am sponsored, usually, as Katie was saying, I receive some kind of incentive, whether that's product or monetary. But then an organic post is something, if I get something for free, or if I even go out and buy something myself and post about it, people see it as an honest review versus a paid review. And this is a huge difference for the consumer, because if I go on my blog and I say, oh my God, I just picked up this awesome brownie from Whole Foods and it's amazing, versus, this company I don't know why I just chose brownie for whatever reason, maybe I'm hungry, but, or this company just gave me this awesome pair of shoes. If Adidas gave me a pair of shoes, and I went out and tested them, people are going to say, well, obviously she's sponsored by Adidas. She would have something good to say about that product. But as an athlete, I try and make all of my posts organic in a sense where I'm truly honest in my review, and I won't ever push a product that I don't believe in. So, and in my captions, in my reviews, I will say that, and I'll say, hey, I'm sponsored by Adidas, or I'm sponsored by Gnarly Nutrition. I do receive this product for free, but this is out of this line of product that they have. this is the one protein powder that I really use, and I've tested in real life, and these are the real life results. So people understand that, yes, I represent this one company, and that's the sponsored aspect, but I try and bring the organic aspect into it by saying, well, I've really used this product, and it's tried and true.
No, that's a great point. And Jeff, I'm going to ask you a question about how you take some of that content, what you do with it. But if we were going to boil down of all the requests that we get when we get kind of inbound interest from ReadyPulse about how do you get started in influencer marketing, we start asking the questions, well, why are you even interested in it? Really, it is, how do I get to the people that I can't get to in other type of marketing channels? People hear that they're not, reading print magazines. They know that they're not responding to ads. So how do you actually show up in a relevant manner, an organic manner in people's social feeds? So that discovery, that how do you start a movement? How do you get people talking about your product and your brand? So that's really I think the first use case that people look for is say, how do I get some great content creators and some great storytellers to actually get motivated, start telling my brand story in their voice. The second thing is to say, wow, the type of content that these influencers are creating, we know it works great. We know the audience resonates with it. Help us put it where it matters the most, not just in social, but where people are actually researching and buying products. So that syndication of that content to be not only on social, but when you actually go on different websites and different Instagram feeds, you get a similar experience to get that organic content, and it's not a 5-star text-based rating and review, but it's a visual, authentic, real-time, personalized content. We're finding it is somewhat of the kind of number one soup to nuts use case in influencer marketing. But Jeff, you definitely have some really good strategy around this. So can you talk a little bit about just the intersection of what you call kind of community-based marketing and content
Sure.
marketing?
Yeah, so we're taking these people in the program, the Fan Field Tester program, and the ones that are credible, are authentic, are doing amazing things, we're putting together story packages around them and highlighting them on the website in editorial, photo essays, video components, and then distributing those out across our own channels. But we're also working with partners to kind of develop these packages and distribute them into kind of native units on like an Outside Magazine or Backpack or wherever it may be to try to increase the reach of these stories, because we talk about it in a way where we're looking to build the right 365-degree touch points for the year for the right consumer, right? And everybody's different. Everybody has their own trusted sources and their own behaviors. So we have to put the right piece of content in the right place at the right time to celebrate that person, but also make somebody aware that we're not just showing you a logo and a product and that's the end of the day. There's something rich, that's meaningful, that's maybe experiential or validates who you are as a person or authenticates who you are as a person that represents us, that makes us more attractive for them. And influencers and advocates are a really great source for that, because like everybody said up here already, we're looking for credible and authentic people. So everybody's capable of telling a story. Some people just don't necessarily have the scale, and I think that's the responsibility of a good brand to come in and help do that. Give them the reach and reward them, make a local hero in their own community. They'll celebrate you, and you can go back to that same person and do another project and another project, or that'll bring more people into the program too that'll want to work with you.
Awesome. Hey, Katie, you talked a little bit about having the influencers and having different incentives and receiving products and product reviews and those types of things, and you also talked about finding social influencers and converting them to ambassadors. Can you talk a little bit about just that discovery process of who that great content creator is? There's always this debate, right, of, hey, this person's the best rock climber in the world and he or she wins all the contests, but they're not on social media. Are they a social media, are they a social media influencer? Or, this surfer is always like number 10, but they have the most Instagram followers. Are they right for our brand? So can you talk a little bit about just who you find and who fits from, do they have to be a North Face brand ambassador first and brand advocate, or how does that relationship work, or how does that conversion type of work, and when they're trying out your products and all those types of things?
Yep. So obviously we work with ReadyPulse, and they help us with the sourcing process. We kind of start with all social influencers. We have a specific criteria of the type of people we're looking for to invite into our program. So we start with people who are influential on social. They have large social followings, they post frequently, they have a lot of engagement. But then beyond that, we're also looking for people who are already passionate about our brand. If we're going to invite them into our influencer program, our ambassador program, we want them to be excited about it and enthusiastic from the beginning, and really be authentic in the posts that they do about our brand. If they're a fan of the brand to begin with, you don't have to, like, it's not like you're trying to pull teeth or anything. So then becomes a symbiotic relationship. It's like they want to be a part of this program, we can offer them a lot, and in turn we get a lot from them as well. So for us, it's people who are influential on social media, who participate in all the activities we support as a brand, people who share really great quality imagery. So again, we start with a large pool of people and we kind of whittle down, and toward the end we're looking at, on an account by account basis, what does their imagery look like? Are they really living that outdoor lifestyle? Are they getting after it all the time? Are they trail running? Are they climbing? And so Ready Pulse does help us with that kind of sourcing process and whittling down to the right group of people to invite. But it is really important for us that they are authentic, and they are fans of the brand already, so that it's coming from a place of authenticity when they say, I love this jacket, and absolutely, I tried it on the trail, and this is what I love about it. So
yeah, absolutely, really important point. Out of I think 500 campaigns that we run for clients, we've never done a pay for play for post, and it's just not a sustainable. It's not a sustainable strategy to pay somebody for your product. And when we get down into it with a brand of saying, hey, well, I have to pay people to post it to like my product, we have a conversation with them. Well, maybe we should find different customers, or maybe it's not a product fit. But the authenticity is a really big deal. Brand marketing is easier, Diego, sometimes for influencer marketing, because it's not. You can use lifestyle imagery that works really well on Instagram, and you can talk about a lot of different aspirational and inspirational images. It's sometimes harder to take that leap from having something inspirational, aspirational, and putting that something on that somebody's actually going to make a purchasing decision on. You're an e-commerce guru, from Beats and from Skullcandy. You've done amazing things. How do you make that leap from like inspirational, aspirational social content to actually driving results on e-commerce?
Well, I think a couple of things there. One, when it comes to just the influencer piece, it's really not about coming across as marketing, right? Which
Yep.
is sort of counterintuitive to e-commerce, because if you're just really focused on that sort of linear purchase path, like you said, the consumer kind of realizes that they're being marketed to, and sort of they back away from that type of message, because it's really about where you deliver the message, like Jeff was saying. So especially for our consumer, which is a younger consumer, they spend 85-90% of the time on their phone. Some of them sleep with their phone. It's the first thing that they look at when they wake up in the morning. So it's not so much about like taking them straight from the phone to the cart to purchase the product, as it is to being there with them in a way where you're not interrupting the day, right? And so that's the influencer piece comes in really well like that, because it's sort of, I'm having breakfast, or I'm going out for a run, or whatever it is that I'm doing, and somehow you're organically woven into that story, and it sort of just brings your attention to the product.
Yep.
On our side, on our channels, we do a little bit more sort of marketing, but we still try to preserve the social channels to be a little bit more brand leaning. The one thing that I think any of you who follow this stuff on social or on your own feeds or just companies is that people love product posts too. Like,
Yep.
It's not just about, I agree that it's like these amazing posts of like outdoors when I wish I was out there, charging. But sometimes people just love to like look at product, and the product engagement is actually on par sometimes with that content. So you can sort of, if you're telling a story where it's out, a lifestyle story, and it's organic, and you time it right, then you back that up with your own product story, and then the focus becomes strictly on the product.
Yep.
And then from there, that kind of leads you into the website. But we don't sort of try to push you directly in there. We count on the fact that you're going to sort of make your way there.
Right.
And then when you do come there, we sort of reinforce it by showing that social post adjacent to the merchandising, so to speak. And that seems to get good results.
Awesome. So clearly the brands are finding influencer content very effective on the discovery mechanism, on content engagement, and even conversion technologies. So Nina, the content that an influencer produces is super valuable. Brands love it, consumers love it. We often get asked, well, how much do I have to pay influencers? And influencers, we've seen, have a lot of different types of reasons for being participating within brand stories and producing content. Can you walk us through just one, I think, your personal perspective of what incentives work for you and what motivates you, and then maybe a broader picture of what you've seen work and not work for if a brand says, hey Nina, will you take a picture of this for $10 or those types of things. But
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about incentives?
Excuse me. So let me think about this for a second. There is the standard pay per post, or a company will offer, hey, we're going to, just give you this one product, and we'll not necessarily pay you in money, but the free product will be in return for the post. I have mixed feelings about that, in that it's not very genuine or organic for me, because I don't use it for a long period of time. So and therefore my audience doesn't develop a relationship with the product. My favorite way of getting content has actually been doing different campaigns with my sponsors. So actually developing a relationship with the company and then bringing that relationship out through my posts is my favorite. So for instance, I recently did a campaign with Adidas Outdoor for a pair of shoes and their jacket, and we actually went out for a weekend to Crested Butte. We did a bunch of shooting, took a bunch of photos, and I gained content from that. And I was able to receive photos and monetary incentive for that, and it was really fun for me, really fun for the company, and I am just excited to push that into my post. And I'm saying, hey, Adidas gave me this experience. We had a lot of fun shooting these products, and here's the result. So people kind of go along for the journey, and they realize, okay, we're going out to shoot this product, but here's what happened along the way. We had a lot of laughs, and it was a good time. So personally, that would be my favorite. But granted, it is a lot easier to also just give an athlete or an ambassador, hey, here's this protein powder, and you can use it for a week, or use it, incorporate it into your training, and people will see good results from that too.
Cool. Well, we might go back to that. Katie, I'd love to hear just some of the campaigns that you've run and how you've either activated influencers, or when they've produced content, what type of things that you've done with them. I think you guys have done some really innovative stuff with in campaigns with your
So typically we get, our TNF locals are really excited about posting when we do a campaign, and we'll any of their photos we can then use in other marketing channels. So we obviously post them on social media, but we use them on our website, we use them in emails, we've also featured them in our catalog before. Awesome. And so we're finding a lot of great ways to feature these people and have that social proof be kind of woven into different marketing channels. One of my favorite campaigns that we ran with our TNF locals last year was our Give Pack campaign. So it was for our backpack campaign. It was all about getting people outdoors with you. And so we actually up front asked all of our TNF locals, hey, if you could take anyone outdoors that who would it be? And we just, without any details around the campaign or anything, asked them that question. And then we sent them all a pack, but we also sent them an extra pack for whoever it was that they wanted to take outdoors. So it was a way for them to participate in the program, but then also share with someone that they knew. And we received a lot of actually emotional responses back from some of the locals. There was one in particular who hadn't been hiking with his mom in 10 years, and this inspired him to take his mom out hiking. So we got a really great story back from him, and we were able to feature some of those stories on our blog. So it was a really great way of engaging our influencers with the campaign and getting them involved, and then also getting some really great content back as well.
Great story, great campaign. That's
Yeah.
very cool. Okay, what doesn't work? I mean, what have you guys seen of, experienced? What has bombed? Whether it's a story of an influencer gone rogue, or just like missed expectations, or what hasn't worked, or what have you seen that said that you give advice to the crowd of saying, hey guys, if you're going to get started on this, here's one thing to steer away from. And I won't pick who starts on that one. So.
Well, one thing I would say is not being too eager to just, because you might have like a campaign or a product launch or something with like a timetable to it, so there's a need to sort of activate, and if you're too eager, sometimes you don't make the right match with the right influencer or the right fit, and so the brand doesn't show up the way you want, and that's just really more because you sort of were really gung-ho to kind of make a move.
Right.
And so sometimes I think it's just better so there's two tracks really, like you should always be cultivating these relationships. It ultimately comes down to relationships. Right. And then as you cultivate the relationships, you'll identify who are the people you want to leverage when it's time to do sort of the marketing initiative.
Yep.
But to just sort of flat out plan it with a marketing initiative integration and not have some of that groundwork,
right.
You probably won't get the results that you were hoping. And if you do, you might be, a little lucky.
Great advice. We've seen plenty of eager marketers for sure. What else? What else doesn't work? Any good stories?
I think this kind of ties into what Diego was saying, but I've seen a lot of influencers out there who are too eager in the sense that they will get free product or incentive in the mail, and they'll take photos of their product and be like, I just got this huge package from Adidas Outdoor from X company. So grateful, so thankful. I'm gonna, take it out immediately. And it has its time and its place. But I think the word authentic is really tossed around in this industry, and like, what does authentic really mean? And for me personally, to be authentic is to show who you are as a person. And to promote your companies through your own personality. So to just promote product for the sake of product, and to say, hey, look at this sweet pair of shoes I got. Isn't it so cool? Like, don't you wish you had this pair of shoes? It's kind of like an eye roll, and you're just like, sweet, like, yeah, it's really cool, but like, how are you going to use it? People don't really sense that story, that authenticity behind it. So I think it's really important to be authentic, but to really think about that word. What does authentic mean to you as a person, as a brand, and as a social influencer altogether? And how are you going to bring that out and present it to your audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nina brings up a great point. Different things work for different brands, but when you're mixing in both, as Diego said, product shots, even brand social content with influencer social content, that type of mix is what we've seen the best in terms of being able, as a consumer, we can all relate to that, about seeing that type of diversity within any type of kind of online digital experience that we have. Jeff and Katie, anything you'd like to share about what doesn't work, or anything to stay the crowd should stay away from?
I think for me, I have a horror story of communication, and I think that's part of the heavy lift of running a program like this, whether you're just starting out or have maxed out with 100,000 influencers or whatever. In order to have this relationship, you have to be talking to them. And I had putting together a trip up to Tofino this past fall, and I was trying to get an influencer from Canada over there, and we emailed, we talked, like I outlined everything, I outlined the expectation. And at the time we had just met, I'm like, this is just a really good opportunity. If you can make it work for yourself, awesome. Here's some product, here's everything that you're gonna need for it. Once you get to the trip spot with the rest of my crew, like, we got you covered. It's just getting there, and then we'll meet you, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll build it up from there. And then time goes by, just pinging a few emails back and forth, kind of checking the box, like, yep, cool, got all the information. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, I don't understand like my compensation for any of this. And I had thought I had outlined everything very clearly, and that this was like almost a high five moment. This is an opportunity. We'll see how it goes from there, and this is what we can do next year when we figure out what works for us and how we want to work together. And the guy is just like, I don't understand at all. And I think that's really easy to overlook how kind of thoughtful you have to be in outlining it and how different people respond to different things. So like your elevator pitch of how it works may not work all the time for everybody, and I think having that communication awareness is a big help up front.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wait, Katie, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think just maintaining the relationship over time and keeping the influencers
Sure.
engaged is something you really need to be mindful of. Just because they do want that kind of white glove experience a little bit, and they want to hear from you, and they want to give feedback. So it is a symbiotic relationship.
Sure.
It can't be too one-sided. So you can't just be asking them to do stuff all the time. You have to really involve them, create special experiences, exclusive content, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I guess it just to avoid being too one-sided would be a caution point I have. But and to really keep that engagement going and keep the communication going
Awesome.
with that group of people.
Nina, for that, what can a brand do best outside of monetary compensation to support their social influencer, whether they're a sponsored athlete, whether they're a great blogger, whether they're a photographer, whether they're just really good at what they do? What's the best thing a brand can do to support them?
Well, I really agree with Katie in that communication is really important. It's really, really important to be very transparent and communicative with your athletes, because each athlete wants something different, whether they're a grassroots or a professional athlete, and everyone totally lost my train of thought there. Sorry, having a moment. But so yeah, communication is something important, because whether you want money or free product, if you don't hear back from your sponsor, it's really depressing, because you're thinking, well, they're not thinking about me, I'm not important. So whether the company wants to give you something or not give you something, getting some type of timely response
Right.
is very important. And the other thing that is most important for me personally is getting some type of experience with the company. So whether it's a small sponsor like Gnarly Nutrition or a big sponsor like Adidas Outdoor, both companies have offered me outdoor experiences. Both companies have brought me outside and compensated me to hang out with the team or hang out with even consumers, to go out with a consumer who buys the products and say, hey, let's all hang out with the athletes and just have a good time. So experience is another huge priority for me, just to go out and be able to have a really fun time.
Cool. How does a influencer or ambassador or athlete, how do they get bounced from your program? How do they get the email, the call that says, hey, your key no longer works, the password is revoked? What does somebody have to do to be phased out?
Well, I mean, honestly, like, we don't have a phase out program or clause.
Right.
I think like the key thing is what you said. One is you very quickly understand the nature of the relationship. So if it's very transactional, it's sort of like self-selected, because
Sure.
at one point, like, it just stops because you're not interested in a transactional dynamic. Like, the symbiotic piece is true there. And the other one is, if you do a really good job, what you're trying to do is you're trying to add value to them, and
Yep.
in turn, they're going to like do it for you in a way that just makes sense, right? That just goes to that sort of ecosystem idea. So
Yep.
if the approach on their side is very transactional, it's almost like communicating to you that I'm not interested in the relationship
Right.
unless there's, it's the value isn't there. So then
Sure.
you decide to, the truth is that these teams that internally at companies tend to be very small, so managing all these people and all this stuff takes a lot of
Yeah.
time, and you very quickly decide that it's not worth your time because this individual isn't as invested as you
Sure.
are in it, and it sort of dies off without having to formally say. Now, if you do have like we were talking about those tiers, if you do have an ambassador, it just depends on the formality of it. That
Yep.
could just be a whole different thing altogether. But in that sort of like fan influencer sphere,
Yep.
it's really just, I think it just sort of goes away if it becomes really transactional.
Great perspective. Any other perspectives on that?
Yeah, I think if something goes off the rails like 100%, then obviously that's probably a different conversation than just like we're just not going to work with you anymore. But
Right.
you know, what Diego just said about this being a transaction, I think is right on, because we approach the people that we want to work with like as a project by project basis, and so like we want to take you on this trip and plug you in with our athlete team to go on a hut-to-hut trip. Cool. Once that's done, you know, the next opportunity might not come up for a while, and you know, if that person stays engaged, then they're probably higher on the list to get that second chance, third chance, whatever it may be. But the way that the tiers can really help kind of support what happens if somebody loses interest is you can still supply them with the content through, you know, an email distribution program, social program, whatever it is, to make them feel like they're still part of the program without actually participating at the level that maybe they did in the past. And I think that keeps the program whole, keeps everybody in some line of happiness, whether they've decided not to participate at the level they used to for a reason, you know, that's up to them. But that way, at least the program is still functioning for them, and they still see what's happening, and maybe can re-engage at some point too.
Awesome. We'll probably get to a couple other questions, and we'll start passing around the mic to some audience questions. So Diego, you mentioned, communication, and it takes a lot to manage them. Katie, any thoughts just around recommendations around how people should staff this, support this when they're looking to start an influencer marketing program? Is it a fly-by-night thing? Do you need one person? Do you need half a person? Can you talk through any advice that you have about anybody starting an influencer marketing program on the staffing end of it?
Yeah, I mean, it is very time-consuming because you want to have a direct relationship with these people. You want to continue the communication. So it does require a lot of time and energy to maintain a program like this. For us, it's a shared program between social media and PR. And so that's kind of how we were able to get it off the ground. But I think it probably depends on the size of your company and the size of the program that you want to launch with, and just the scale of it. Because you can manage a very effective influencer program with 30, 50 people,
right.
And it wouldn't require too much of your time.
Yep.
But as you scale, obviously, it's going to be more time consuming, and so it's just something to think about when you're starting the program, is how you're going, if it's successful, how are you going to want to scale it in the future, and how are you going to staff up appropriately for something like that.
Makes sense. Great advice. Okay,
Yeah.
last question before we take it out to the audience. How do you actually build a business case to say, hey, this is going to pay off? While there are nonprofit businesses out here, a lot of them are here to create a great brand, to launch a new product. It's hard to do. How do you actually somewhat, put together a business case that says influencer marketing is right for me? This is something that I'm going to put time and effort and resources and money into.
Well, for us, I mean, if you really think about it, it's the most cost efficient, right? So I think the business case kind of makes itself. If you just start with the idea of product, which you already have, doesn't cost you anything, maybe except for the shipping, and then you're getting reach. When you think about what ads cost you and things like that, I mean, really quickly you can see that, there's a business case there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think in the media PR world, the earned media component is coveted, and you're building a system that's going to generate that for you, just like Diego said, and that right there is reason enough to do it. But it also gives you a different way to scale third-party validation that everybody wants that. Everybody covets somebody saying that this is the best stuff I've ever used because of A, B, C, and D, and have that person be real. And so you're kind of building a support structure that enhances what you're doing, maybe from a traditional advertising or media standpoint, because people can enter the business funnel or enter the path to purchase through some traditional method, but then start seeing these touch points come to life, and that there's real ROI at the end of the day. The attribution of it along the path is really challenging to map. But it's there. That person's been actually influenced by that content, and if you just kind of leave them with a traditional handshake, it's not going to be anywhere near as effective as it could have been if you have that kind of support underneath it.
Awesome, Katie. How do you look at it?
Yeah. So this program was actually applicable to a lot of different areas of the business. We were able to generate, amazing content that we could leverage and feature in a lot of different areas. But we also have a lot of brand events that we'd like to invite these people to and have them bring their friends. So there are a lot of different business problems that could be solved by a program like this.
Yep.
And then obviously from like an ROI perspective, you can start featuring these types of images on your product pages on your website, and in turn be able to prove that there is a lift in conversion on those pages when that sort of authentic social proof is available to a consumer in the purchase process.
Yep.
So I mean, that in and of itself is compelling to test and prove when you're kind of going into a program like this and trying to sell it in.
Yep.
We also get a large number of product reviews, authentic product reviews, and genuine from this group of people.
Yep.
So, you know, when we seed them a skiing jacket, they take it out, they try it out, they're able to leave a product review. So that was one of our goals in the program as well. So there's a lot of different aspects of the business that are kind of supported by this program, and that was a great way to kind of get it off the ground.
Awesome, great perspective. So lastly, Nina, I'll leave you with the last word. So what is your ROI? How do you, when you're presenting yourself to a brand and a brand says, hey Nina, I'm thinking about a sponsorship, these types of things, what do you tell them that they're going to get in terms of a sponsorship with you?
When I approach companies, I tell them that my ROI to them is my story. And I always try and keep it very authentic, there's that word again, and genuine. And I just try and keep whatever I'm doing very relevant to their product. So I just say, I just try and be the best person I can every single day, and I'm going to try and present that message to my audience, and I will incorporate your company into that message.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So thanks so much, panelists. We're now going to go into audience questions. So I know that there is one mic, but is a mic being passed around, or is that the only mic? All right, somebody has to break the ice. So last 2 years, it's the same thing. Ron, do we have a prize for the person who asked the first question? All right, selfie stick to the person who asked the first question. Somebody has to break the ice, because I know there's like 20 people that are going to follow afterwards. Yes, okay, I love it.
So as a upcoming influencer, new influencer.
Sorry, can you closer to the mic, please?
As a upcoming influencer, a new influencer, how do you recommend we reach out to companies like North Face, Adidas, and Smartwool, Skullcandy?
Awesome, great question. How do you get discovered?
It's hard. It's hard for sure, because the channels are so busy and so noisy. It's hard. We spend a lot of time actually looking, mining hashtags, mining event names, things like that we participate in, to see who showed up and who's been, repeatedly engaging in the content we put out. So I think making yourself visible online is a big deal. Obviously, you're here, so you have access to the industry too, right? A lot of people don't. So that getting that face-to-face component helps, and I think if you make as much noise as you can about yourself in that authentic, credible way, you'll have a really good chance of getting picked up. And I think also having a point of view on what you want to do up front goes a long way too, because a lot of times when we talk to people about whether or not they're a good fit to do something with us, they're just like, I don't know, I just want to do cool stuff. I'm like, yeah, so do I. Like, let's do it. But then what? So I think having a very specific perspective on what you want to do and how it applies to what you want to get done past that point for you goes a long way.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that we got this question from every kind of influencer over the past 2 years, which is, hey, ReadyPulse, you work with all these brands, can you at least start a network so that you can connect us to them? And we did that. So we started that up over the last few months, and it's been really well received from the brands, because we're discovering fresh talent for them, and it gives a great ability for people like you to participate, at some really cool brand campaigns. So you should check it out on the website. Great question, though.
Can I say something really quick? It's also about making your story different from everyone else's, and being able to have a well-spoken story, or being well-spoken enough to approach a company and say, hey, I know that my story sounds similar to all these other ones, but this is why I'm different, and this is why you should sponsor me. And to not give up either. So the fact that, as Jeff was saying that you're here at the trade show, I've definitely gotten some sponsorships just by walking past booths, looking for the right people, talking to the right people, and being there at the right time. And again, having that well-spoken story to pitch to them.
Awesome. Next question. We'll ask you to use the mic, because we won't be able to hear if you're not at the mic. All right, this selfie stick is delivered. Who's next? Ice is broken. Come on, I know there's
Maybe
somebody
not.
dying. Do you mind just going to the mic, please?
At what point do you think this type of marketing is going to be saturated? I picked up a magazine right around here, and the whole magazine is based on adventure blogs. And it seems like everyone's kind of copying that, and I'm already starting to get kind of tired of it because it all seems kind of feigned at this point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So-
I think I would say it's already saturated, right? And to some degree, it's already matured, right? There's already agencies that represent influencers. So when that happens, it's kind of gone pro or prosumer. But I think it goes back to what everyone here was saying, which is just think about storytelling, right? I mean, the classics, so they've been around forever, but there always comes around, there's a storyteller that tells a story in a different way that hooks you, right? So I think it just comes down to that. The people that rise to the surface is because it's not just that they have a great story to tell, but they also, to some degree, need to know how to tell it. And the people that really tell it well will sort of rise above the rest, and you'll sort of zoom in on that.
And to kind of build on that, word of mouth marketing has been around forever, and people do tend to trust the opinions of the people they know, and the people who have large influences on social media. And so, that part of it I don't think is going away. I think it is more authentic to hear that a jacket is great from somebody who's taken it out and tried it. So that word of mouth aspect, I think, is still an important part of it, and probably not something that's really going to go away. I think people do trust the opinions of their friends and others on social media more than they would a brand telling them something.
The great thing about the opportunity today is that the consumer can self-select about what they want to see and what they want. So rather than a brand producing a generic ad that says, this is my black shoe for this demographic and everybody in the world is going to see it, influencer marketing allows dozens of influencers to take hundreds of pictures so somebody can say, yeah, that's me. And I'm inspired by that, but not these other 100 things. So the just sheer amount of content production gives the consumer the ability to actually self-select what works. And with digital, we can actually tell which storytellers and which content creators work best for those brands. So we have a lot of data of works, but totally agree, 90% of this stuff just doesn't work well, so it makes it really hard. And that's what these guys have done, is they find the best 1% of that content creators and that content that works for them. And that's a lot of the secret sauce, but great question.
Thank you.
What else? Sorry that the microphone's kind of stable there. Yes, number 3, I love it.
So at what point do...
Sorry, can you get closer?
Sorry.
Thank you.
At what point do companies kind of step up and pay influencers for those trips, those experiences? I found in this industry in particular, I've been in a number of different ones,
Yep.
the outdoor industry gear is relatively easy to get if
Yeah.
you're at a certain level as an influencer.
Right.
But taking it to the next level and making a job or a career out of being that influencer, maybe
Right.
if you're not a professional athlete, or you have been and now you're older and doing other things, photography and otherwise, how
Yep.
do you break into that where you're making money doing it?
Awesome. How do you quit your day job?
From my personal experience, it never hurts to ask. And if you're not a professional athlete, but you have a really great trip idea and you want to approach your favorite company about it, write up a proposal with an amount of money that you'd like to be paid for, or even have the trip paid for, and that's a great starting point. And then if you just repeat that, you kind of build up a resume of trips that you've been on. And then you can go to a company or your current sponsor and say, hey, I've done all this really cool stuff. I have a really great online social following, and this is what I think I deserve. So I think it's a really important thing to not expect it to be given to you. I think it's really important to go out and get it.
Awesome. Everybody's looking for new
Yeah.
ideas.
I would just add from the brand's point of view, it's like the concern here is like you're almost collaborating. We would be collaborating together on telling a story. So this comes down to how good are you making content? If you want to go on a trip and you can, you need funding and content's going to come out of that, and that content is of a certain level, it makes a lot of sense because we're both getting something out of it. You're getting to do what you love, and we're getting this great story told in a really great way. But if we have to send the whole crew along with you to tell the story on your behalf and things like that, then you can see how those things start to just get bigger and the stakes are higher.
Sure. So along those lines, how do you differentiate between being an influencer and someone that creates content in that way versus being, say, a professional photographer that's then selling you a specific thing?
Yeah, so if I understand the question, I think the influencer, right, it's about the medium, and so here we're talking about social, so by extension it's really content is what's creating the influence, with the exception of maybe Twitter, where that's changing, where that was words, right? Like and I think humor, for instance, worked really well in Twitter. Like there's just a lot of you follow Twitter and you laugh every day just reading what stuff is put up there. So it's still content, whether it's words or pictures or video. And I think like the difference there is just about ultimately who's making it, and then if you feel that you want to pursue the making piece of it, then you just got to get good at that. Whereas like some professionals, they get to a certain level where they travel, right? So for instance, everybody I think here knows who Jimmy Chin is, right? And he's an amazing climber on his own, but he's more known for just being the guy that creates this amazing content and brings us that story that happens on this peak that none of us would have known how amazing that story was if it wasn't for the fact that he was up there with his gear. So that's kind of the way to think of it at that, but just kind of now just bring it to a smaller scale.
Yeah, channels matter, obviously, right? It's if you want to be a Snapchat influencer, you got to take cool, funny videos and mark them up and all those types of things. But great question. What else? All right.
Pretty easy right there. I was wondering if you all could talk a little bit more about maintaining the relationship, both from the brand, maintaining the relationship with the influencer and vice versa. Like, if you can actually break down specifically, how often are you in communication with your influencers? What do you require from them to create a really strong relationship between the two of you?
Awesome, great question. Katie, you want to take that?
Yeah, so we try to send out communications to them on a weekly basis as a group. So if we have something new to share with them or just fun content or events that we want to invite them to, whatever it may be, we do try to maintain that weekly messaging with them. But if they reach out to us via email, we'll we'll respond to them just as those messages come in. So that's kind of what we try to maintain. But like I said, as you scale, that does become more time consuming. You will get more messages from people. So it's just something you kind of have to plan for, but that's kind of what we try to go for.
Yeah, and I think it matters on the tiers, right? So one of the first questions we get is when somebody wants to start, they say, how many influencers should I start off with? You start off with 10, right? But make sure that those 10 are the right 10 and really pay a lot of attention to them. But if you want to scale that, and if it's thousands or tens of thousands, your messaging is going to be more of a broader based ability to be able to do that at scale. So it really depends on, I think, what type of tier that is for your influencers. But great question, and certainly at the influencer level that a lot of these folks are working with, it's tough to do, and it very much is direct relationships. All right, we have time for one more question. Who's last up? Come on, I know somebody has a zinger in there. All right.
Influencer networks and sponsoring professional athletes is not going away anytime soon. You all do it. You're an athlete, you're a brand, you buy into it. My question has to do with valuation and measurement. How do you as a brand understand, track, measure, and value what your influencer networks are actually delivering to you in quantifiable spend to justify what you're actually spending in the marketplace? wise?
Awesome question. So all about the sponsorship, influencer marketing ROI. I think it's a fantastic kind of question to end with. Who wants to start off?
I'll take a stab. I think that depends on the goals of the program. Like when we were talking about the business case to launch a program like an ambassador program, there's specific goals that you're trying to achieve at that moment in time, and that stays through whatever campaigns you're running against the program. So if my problem is awareness, and I'm going to really look at awareness measurements, if it's pure reach, then we're going to drive as many impressions as we can and qualify those impressions as best as we can. If we're trying to drive credibility into the product engine, then we're going to try to get as many reviews as we can. So I think you have to slice and dice it a little bit before kind of going end to end. But at the end of the day, there's enough tools out there where you can take user-generated content, embed it, and track it on your site and see where people migrate from that photo to buy, if they don't buy. That's a pretty sophisticated platform, but it's out there. And you can go as deep into it as you want to go from an ROI standpoint, but I think defining the goals that you want to achieve up front will help that measurement become easier.
Yeah, and the ReadyPulse platform, we're able to track how many impressions we get from this group of people, how many engagements we get. If they're sharing about a particular campaign, we can actually track that through hashtag monitoring and how often they post and things like that. So that's something we are able to measure, as well as number of reviews that are left, and as Jeff mentioned, just the results of putting user-generated content on our website and what the engagement with those photos is like and how that leads to purchase is something that we look at too. But agree with Jeff that just defining what those goals are up front and what those metrics are that you try to grow over time is really important.
Yeah, I would say you would split your budget if you want to kind of get a little more sophisticated between what it costs to just maintain it, and then think of certain activities as how do you match them up to media. So we talked about earned media, right? If you go to sort of awareness measurements, those are probably the ones that are a little fuzzier because perfect example, like you might do something with Nina, it might get a magazine cover that gives you awareness, and there is a cost if you were to speak directly to the magazine and say I want to buy that cover, but you may not be able to measure what that cover has done in terms of sales for you right off the bat, whereas the reviews, right, that one for instance, that if you're able to seed product early and make sure that the likes of Amazon, as soon as you launch your product, there's 5 reviews on that product, that's going to potentially help you in sales, and you're going to be able to see what your sales are on Amazon. So it really is about what they said, which is goals, and then the measurements and just your comfort level. But there is going to be a part of the program that just costs you to maintain it, and then there's going to be activities that you're going to maybe think about in media equivalent terms.
And it's a great question. If you think about the difference of what tools digital marketers have today, which are ads, think of that as a one-off basis that doesn't have a lot of residual benefit. When you're building these influencer and ambassador communities, you have a much bigger and longer term kind of always-on marketing channel that you don't control, but you've empowered your best storytellers and your best digital marketing assets to go off in their channels, offline, online, to be able to tell their stories. So ROI is certainly important from a discovery and an awareness, content engagement, conversions. But I think what you'll find, and I think what we'll find in the industry, and the outdoor industry has been on the forefront of this, is that authentic marketing and marketing through your customers, putting your customers front and center of your brand, inspirational, aspirational marketing is the truest form of marketing and the truest form of storytelling. And I think every other industry is trying to mimic what you guys all have here. And the more that we can do that, the more transparent and the more closer relationship and trusted relationship we'll have with our consumers. So ROI is certainly important and it's going to be there, but I think we'll find a monumental shift in terms of ad technology versus influencer marketing technology in the next few years. So panelists, thank you so much for being here. Great job today. Awesome.